Hello folks, it's me again, Amanda Enderman, your trusty tour guide in the wonders of the wonderful city, also known as Rio de Janeiro. On this video, continuing with my series about the history of Rio, I'm gonna talk about the second Regency to be in the power of only one person in Brazil, which was the Regency of Araújo Lima. Mind you, the Regency was actually a very important period in the history of Rio and in the history of Brazil, most especially the Regency of Araújo Lima, even though I have to admit, themes like the independence, the reign of Dom Pedro I, and even the reign of Dom Pedro II, which I am gonna get there, are far more popular and far more well known, I know, but we can't skip periods of history, am I right? So we're gonna continue talking about the Regency period, following history. But before I get right on to the theme of the video, I have to remind you that I'm currently offering walking tours through the city of Rio. And all of these tours are described on my website, and all you have to do is click the link, which will be in the description box below, as well as in the first comment, text me via WhatsApp, that's very important, make your reservations, and let's get to know the city of Rio in person, folks, with me, your trusty tour guide, of course. Without further ado, let's get right on to the theme of the video. With the renouncing as regent by Diogo Antônio Feijó, I mentioned in the previous video that he simply gave up and didn't want to be regent anymore. Araújo Lima, which was the Minister of Justice at the time, took up the position of regent as temporary regent. Of course, temporary because he just took over the position so that the position wouldn't be vacant. But no one had officially elected him. So there needed to be elections in order to determine that, oh, he will be the regent, okay, or no, the regent will be someone else. Those elections were finally had in April 1838, and he was actually elected with the majority of votes. It was just, to confirm. But already as temporary regent, he created a ministry which was majorly composed of regressionist politicians.
But Amanda, what are regressionist politicians? I never heard of such a thing.
At this time, a regressionist would be anyone who wanted the legal situation in Brazil to come back to what it was before the Additional Act of 1834. Remember, which I mentioned in the previous video, the act by which the provinces were given autonomy and government was decentralized. All that did here in Brazil was cause separatist rebellions of provinces which wanted to break from Brazil and become their own countries. I know that it works to this day in the US, for example, but here in Brazil, decentralized government didn't work. And this is why, to this day, government in Brazil is quite centralized. And yes, states are allowed to legislate about matters which only concern the state in question, but other than that, they are subordinate to the central government and to the Brazilian constitution and other laws as well. It's not possible in Brazil for one state to have one criminal law, for instance, and another state to have another different criminal law. That's not possible. Other than that, he revoked the Additional Act of 1834, so he removed autonomy from the provinces, and the function of creating laws was in the hands of Congress and Senate, which it is to this day. And this was made by the Law of Interpretation of the Additional Act in 1840. But perhaps the main importance of this regency for the city of Rio is that quite a few institutions which exist to this day in the city of Rio were created during this time. And of course, you'll see pictures of them going through your screen as I talk about them. The first of them is the Public Archive of the Empire, which nowadays is called just the National Archive, which at first was established in the May 13th Street, which is beside the Municipal Theater. So on one side of the Municipal Theater, there is the Rio Branco Avenue, and on the other side, there is this May 13th Street. But nowadays, if you are walking by there, you won't find the headquarters of the National Archive anymore. Because truth be told, the National Archive moved places several times until finally in 1985, the institution was transferred to the current headquarters, which is in one of the old buildings of the House of Coin, which was in charge of money and finances and all of that, which is in the vicinity of the Republican Square or the Campo de Santana, which I have already mentioned in previous videos, and I will mention again because this was one of those places which nearly everything happened in the history of Brazil. Stay tuned for that. Another institution which was created during this regency was the Dom Pedro II School, which its first headquarters, nowadays there are many headquarters of this school, not only in the city of Rio, but also in the neighboring city, which is Niterói, was established in the current Marechal Floriano Avenue. Remember a little while back when I spoke about the walking tour that I'm offering? Well, one of these walking tours is called Streets of Rio, and in this tour, which talks about precisely the names of the streets of Rio, you will get to see this headquarters in person right in front of your very eyes, because it is in one of the streets that are included in this tour, the Avenida Marechal Floriano. Originally though, this street was called Rua Larga de São Joaquim, and the street parallel to it, but in front of it, which is one of the streets which was later substituted by the Presidente Vargas Avenue, which we'll also see all of that in this tour, was called the São Pedro Street, because there was the Church of São Pedro, or Saint Peter, on this street. And why am I saying all this? Well, because this school was originally the priest training school of Saint Peter, created in 1739. It was supposed to teach boys so that later they would become priests, which this kind of school nowadays we call seminário. These kinds of schools exist to this day, though not this one. Might I mention that it changed names a lot until finally, by decree in 1837, it was renamed the Dom Pedro II School. It was converted into a secondary education school.
But Amanda, what is a secondary education school?
Luckily for you, I can easily compare it to at least the American school system, because I studied in an American school myself from senior kinder until half of the 9th grade. Making the analogy, it's as if there were a school which only taught from the 6th grade until the 12th grade. You see, in the time of my father, or in the time of my grandfather, or even of my great-grandfather, schools were divided like this. And primary schools, which would be from the 1st to the 5th grade, and in order to continue your education, you had to take the test and be admitted in a different school than the one where you had been taught from the 1st to the 5th grade.
And before 1st grade, where did people study?
Nowhere. School beginning age before was normally at 5 years old, and before that at 7 years old. People started school already to begin learning how to read. Before that, it was your mom taking care of you at home. There was no such thing as kindergarten or nursery or junior kinder or even senior kinder, at least in Brazil. By the way, let me know in the comment section below if in your country it was also like this before, and how is it now, and so on. I would love to know. Anyways, as I said before, this school was created by law, and the law stated in its first article, the priest training school of São Joaquim, yes, at this time it was São Joaquim, no longer São Pedro, is converted from now on into a secondary education school. Article 2 said that this school shall be named from now on the Dom Pedro II School, and Furthermore, and now I'm gonna read because otherwise I'm gonna keep looking down. In this school shall be taught the following subjects: Latin, Greek, French, English, debate, rhetoric, I guess you can say, and the elementary principles of geography, history, philosophy, zoology, mineralogy, algebra, geometry, and even astronomy. And it was a public school at that. It was not a private school. Can you imagine a public school having all of this? Last but definitely not least, another institution which was created at this time was the Brazilian Historic and Geographic Institute. And this institute was inspired by the Institut Historique, founded in Paris in 1834, and since it was first built, it had the financial backing by Dom Pedro II himself, because one of the purposes of it was to preserve the monarchy, but perhaps the main purpose of it was to create the national identity of Brazil by debating how the history of Brazil would be written. Before this, we had, yes, documents about the history of Brazil, but they were scattered. Probably in the National Library, which I already mentioned the history of that in a previous video. But it wasn't organized in history books as we have nowadays. The Brazilian Historic and Geographic Institute was supposed to organize the documents and also debate on how the history of Brazil would be told, and to highlight the great historic figures of Brazil and the heroes of Brazilian history. This is it for this video about the Regency of Araújo Lima. I hope you liked it, and if you did like it, hit that like button, then right after that, hit that subscribe button, but most importantly, hit many times in a row the share button so that you can share this video with as many people as you possibly can, so that each time more people may know of the wonders of the wonderful city. And as usual in this channel, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!